Hello and happy AHP Day. I hope you had a good day. I've been doing a little bit of reflection. Today is actually the second day of myself returning to work as an occupational therapist within the NHS after 2.5 years of being away, having contracted COVID-19 and spending over a year of my life in hospital recovering. I reread a blog that I wrote in November 2020 after I'd been in hospital for about 9 months, I think. No, it wasn't quite that long, probably about 7 months, in which there's some extracts around the work that AHPs did with me. And I guess to celebrate, I wanted to share a little bit of that story with you today. So to cut an extremely long story short, I contracted COVID-19 in April 2020, spending a total of 13 months in hospital, and 5 months of those were in ITU. The particular point I want to talk about where my AHP team worked together was around a goal that I had to remove the feeding tube that I had in situ, and to be able to eat and drink again, because by that point I'd been nil by mouth for food and drink for about 5 months, and I would dream of lemonade. So I was on a medical ward, having been on ITU for quite some time, and my body had completely deconditioned. I had been extremely unwell. The feeding tube was horrible. It kept on coming out, causing me all sorts of problems. I'd been working with the speech and language therapist for a little bit on my swallow. Every time we made an attempt to swallow some water, there was just something that was stopping me from being able to do that. So what we really needed to do was have a look to see what was going on in the throat. So I needed to have a special x-ray that would do a live x-ray of my swallowing mechanism whilst I was attempting to eat something. But in order to do that, I needed to be able to go down to the x-ray department. I needed to be able to sit up straight for a period of time and attempt to have this swallow. So I had all my AHP team involved. Speech and language therapist came regularly to practice swallowing with me. She also did some kind of facials and things, which felt amazing. And she organised for the x-ray to happen. My occupational therapist spent quite a lot of time working with me around tolerating having things in my mouth. We did a lot of stuff around cleaning my teeth. I had lots of physiotherapy to work on my core, because I was so deconditioned I couldn't sit upright for any length of time. And I needed to be able to tolerate to sit up long enough in a wheelchair that would support me, that would fit into the machine, so that they could x-ray. So it took a couple of weeks to get it all organised, to get a wheelchair that suited me, that I could sit up in, and I would practice being hoisted in and out of that with the occupational therapists and with the physiotherapists. Continued to do some exercises with physio around being able to sit up and tolerate sitting up for a period of time, and had lots of discussions with my dietitian and medical staff around negotiating whether I would be ready to have the feeding tube removed. So the day that I eventually had the scan, my whole HP team came. It's 2 years down the line from this, because I remember it happening in a November time. It's still really emotional to think about. So the day of the X-ray came involved, so 2 speech and language therapists, a couple of physios, and my occupational therapist came down. I remember Anne, my OT, wore one of those special X-ray, I suppose, a bit like dinner lady jackets, pinafores, to protect herself, and she sat with me during the X-ray. I had to swallow a piece of cake. It was a very stale piece of cake. I do think on reflection that they could have provided me with something a bit more tastier. And the physios and speech and language therapists were behind the screen, all anxiously hoping that this X-ray was going to show that my swallow was fine and that I'd be able to achieve this goal of being able to eat and drink, or at least definitely begin to drink for myself, because it was an ongoing battle. People were extremely worried that I wouldn't be able to swallow, and we did the exercise, and I remember feeling extremely scared about the fact that I might choke on this very stale piece of cake, but the X-ray showed that there was no issues with my swallow, and I remember everybody holding back tears, and the speech and language therapist saying, "Oh, you've got a really good swallow, one of the best in Newcastle." And it was from that point that it was suddenly, for me, it was a game changer. Being able to have a drink and not worry that I was going to choke, and eventually begin to build up some solids and have discussions and negotiations with the dietitians around, instead of having a feeding tube in, moving on to the protein shakes. That's probably a more technical term, I do apologise. Team of HPs that worked throughout the 13 months that I was in hospital and since discharge. Without their expertise and knowledge, I wouldn't be anywhere, and I wouldn't be back at work. So this HP day, I want to say thank you to all the dietitians, all the speech and language therapists, all the occupational therapists, all the physiotherapists. When you go into work tomorrow or Monday, or I just want you to remember why you're there, because sometimes it can be really hard, and politics of the workplace can get in the way, but you're there to make people's lives better, and you do that in the most amazing ways. So my advice as a fellow HP would be to stick to your guns, to promote your area of expertise on the side of the people that you work for, to be able to reach their goals. So I guess the last thing I want to say on this HP day is a message to commissioners, to Teresa Coffey. Your HP staff are so valuable. Do not underestimate them. Use them and allow them to do the job that they are trained to do. HPs can really, really help solve lots of issues if you allow them to deliver the therapies and treatments that they are trained to do. Thank you.